In the summer of 1985, weeks before I left home for a year of study in Jerusalem, my parents wanted to celebrate with a family dinner at their club in Chicago. At the table, our waiter learned from my mother, because she couldn't help herself from telling him, that I was leaving for Israel. And then, without hesitation, but kindly, the waiter identified himself as Palestinian. Before the evening ended, he turned to me and he said, "It's not your place." My mother nodded in approval. She misunderstood him. Hers was not a political message. Hers was a wish that I would come home at the end of the year. His was a political message. I didn't know then that conflicts about Israel could start at such a dinner club in Chicago. I hadn't even left yet. But the waiter's comment followed me all the way to Israel, and all year I kept looking for the place he said wasn't mine. In Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, the Golan, even Eilat. In 1985 and 1986, Israel was quiet. No war, no regional trouble to speak of. And nothing distracted me from living a modified Israeli lifestyle and learning in and speaking Hebrew. By springtime, I even said to myself that if I couldn't go back to America, I could be happily at home in Israel. But I was going home, and I was eager to return. I had concluded that Israel needs Jews in America, and I would be pleased to be one. My convictions were well known among my classmates, and at the end of the year in Israel, our class gave out half-hearted awards. My award read, David Lyon, least likely to make Aliyah. I'm glad to say that I've lived it down with multiple trips to Israel and great support for the land, the people, and the language. And I can tell you that in all the places I looked and studied and grew to love, I found that that place does belong to me. It belongs to you too. On trips with many of you, we have found our place in Israel. We found it as soon as the airplane landed there. When we stepped off the airplane and into the airport, we joined the rhythm of Israel. In Tel Aviv, we found New York City. And Jerusalem, it was like a mashup of modernity and antiquity, the West and the Middle East. We found a sacred place in Jerusalem. The awesome feeling of entering the Western Wall Plaza cannot be overstated. The Western Wall, just a remnant of the Temple Mount, is still a place of great holiness and Jewish significance after more than 2,000 years. More than a monument to the past, it's a place of encounter where we join the ever-unfolding timeline of our people's experience. I can still see the place where my father of blessed memory once stood on the plaza, looking towards the wall before he walked to place his prayer between the ancient stones. We found our place where deserts bloom with produce, where former swamps now support industry, and thousands of acres of plants are nourished by science and thriving on ingenuity. And we found our place on the Golan Heights, where the IDF accompanied us in jeeps to show us the dangerous border with Syria they defend every day. But this past summer, I found new places in Israel. I traveled with AIPAC's AIEF, the American Israeli Education Foundation, with 16 other Reform and conservative rabbis. It was an intensive week of lectures, observations, and engagement. One of our site visits was to Israel's northern border with Lebanon, in a moshav called Zarit. When we arrived, we were driven by bus to a highly secure area. It was the place where just last spring, Israel revealed their discovery of a terror tunnel dug by Hezbollah the Iranian-backed terrorist group in Lebanon. We came to see the tunnel. The Israelis already knew about terror tunnels in Gaza, and the world knows about them too. But this terror tunnel and 4 others like it was new. This one wasn't dug in the sand like they were in the south and Gaza. This one was dug through thick mud and clay. So how did the IDF find it? Officials were suspicious when their technology detected vibrations and sounds within the earth. So they began to penetrate the earth with ordinary PVC pipes. And by drilling into the earth straight down, they eventually punched through into an empty space. It was a tunnel. They went further down. They hit earth again. And going deeper, they found more open space. What was it? It was a spiral staircase. It was a tunnel project deep within the earth. Sometime later, the IDF lowered a small camera down a pipe into the tunnel. And when a terrorist came up the tunnel to continue his excavation work, he saw a small object dangling by the ceiling. And when he reached for it, a non-lethal explosive attached to the camera detonated. It scared him. He ran from the tunnel, and surely he told his fellow terrorists that they had been found out. The IDF had all the evidence they needed. They secured the tunnel on both ends and installed a strong lock door on Israel's side. It was the door that we entered. Now it was our turn. Like a stairmaster in the gym, but in reverse, we descended down hundreds of muddy, wet stairs in a closed-in stairway dug out of the heavy earth around us. The IDF added only a string of lights to assist. In some turns along the spiral stairs, we saw what the terrorists left behind: gloves, small shovels, random objects. Finally, at a landing deep in the tunnel, we saw affixed to the tunnel wall a communication system. Wires ran to the other end well beyond our sight. At the same landing was a track that ran containers of earth out of the tunnel to be emptied, like cars in a mine. Other tools, wires, and equipment were left just where they were dropped when the tunnel was discovered. The IDF estimates that $3 million was spent on this tunnel. 4 others brought the total spent to more than $12 million. When we reversed course and ascended the stairs, we paused to rest our legs and to look up the steep passage to see where we were headed. Finally, we emerged, shaken, tired, and a bit muddy. We gathered then at the entrance of the tunnel. Standing together, the IDF told us that just a few days before us, another group entered the tunnel to see it. Shortly after they entered, a woman in the group had trouble breathing. And by the time she exited the tunnel, she was clutching her chest. Asked if she was okay, she said, "Never have I breathed the air of such hatred." We caught our breath too. Before we turned around to leave, we saw there was a mezuzah affixed to the door that the IDF built to secure the entrance. Why was there a mezuzah on this doorpost? The IDF soldier explained that once it was a tunnel filled with terror. Now with the mezuzah attached to the entrance, it's a tunnel protected by the IDF, blessed by God, and used to tell the story of Israel's challenges and Israel's hopes. This, too, was our place. Another day was planned for the West Bank. We were escorted off of our bus and onto another by Palestinian security to take us to the office of the State of Palestine to meet with Mr. Saeb Erekat, Secretary General of the PLO, and chief negotiator for the Palestinian Authority. We took our places at a large table in his conference room. On the wall hung a picture of Yasser Arafat, and about 2 inches higher hung a picture of Mahmoud Abbas. Optics. Mr. Arafat entered the room with his assistant, who sat ready with paper and pen, but never took a note. I'll begin to understand. I'll share with you why it never happened. Mr. Arafat was not optimistic. He was disillusioned by what he had experienced. He said the Palestinian people put 40% of the blame on American presidents and Israeli prime ministers, and 60% of the blame on him. He said to us, they haven't built us hospitals, they haven't built us schools, and they haven't built us infrastructure. As he went on, I wasn't the only one who thought about what even $12 million spent on terror tunnels could have done for Palestinians in the West Bank. I wanted to say, stop building terror tunnels and start building opportunity. I didn't say it out loud. His assistant didn't need to write down my name next to my opinion. Despite many efforts, he said any change would have to come from within, but that any change in leadership, by which he meant who will lead after Abbas, will be a bloodbath in the streets. Finally, at this table, his table, I found a place that wasn't mine. In the 35 years since the waiter spoke to me in Chicago, very little has changed for him. Therein lies one of the most unfortunate and confounding parts of the Middle East conflict. If he had been given a glimmer of hope that Palestinian leaders would accept Israel as a reality, had his leadership been inclined to negotiate with Israeli leaders for recognition and real peace, then he might have said to me, as my mother looked on, one day, my friend, it will be a place for you and for me. It's exactly what Tal Becker, legal advisor, Foreign Affairs, told our group of rabbis. We all begin with our own stories. The challenge is that changing belief, even in the outcomes, depends on believing that change is possible. Is change possible? I'm not sure. Israelis say that conflict is part of who they are. Palestinians say that conflict is part of who they are. Today, Americans say that conflict is part of who we are. The problem is that we're defining not only what is our own conflict, but also what is everybody else's conflict, which is different than the way they define it for themselves. It's an equation that leads us to essentially 9 conflicts at once. Maybe we shouldn't expect change. Maybe we should expect an era of managing conflicts. The 3 essential conflicts are these. First, in Israel, the conflict might be crystallized in the following fact. We know that Israel aimed to land a spacecraft on the moon recently. It failed to land. But what many of us don't know is that unlike American orbiters and spacecraft that are sent on a familiar trajectory far from Earth into space, Israel has to aim for space in the opposite direction. I didn't understand this. So I asked a young member of our congregation who's studying astrophysics to explain it to me. Due to high population areas, Israelis launch over the Mediterranean. But once they reach orbit, it makes no difference. I didn't know that. But geopolitics is still a factor, because an Israeli expert explained that if Israel launched as others do, Arab countries surrounding Israel would shoot down Israel's rockets. This is part of Israel's reality and a feature of its conflicts. Despite it all, Israel still contributes to the world with spectacular innovation and ingenuity. Israel is not perfect, Like any other nation, including our own, Israel makes mistakes. But Israel is a small sliver of a country surrounded by hostile neighbors, often trying to appear larger and more important. Golda Meir once famously said, "Israel and China are 1/3 the world's population." It's good to stand with others. Israel seeks partners with nations that can provide economic viability and political legitimacy. Second, in Palestinian territories, Mr. Erekat as much as admitted that years of intractable conflict have defined generations of Palestinians and impeded his people's prosperity. But when Arafat was offered more than 95% of the West Bank, which represented an end to conflict, he declined it. Why? He said, and I paraphrase, "I won't give Israel credit for minimizing the world's sympathy for the Palestinian people's cause." In effect, Arafat never wanted peace. He only wanted conflict that would lead to Israel's destruction. Third, in America, conflict surrounds us on the left and right. And when that double-sided conflict is aimed at Israel, we have reasons to be concerned. Abe Foxman used to say, and he said it from our bima when he headed the ADL, "One who criticizes Israel is not an anti-Semite, but one who only criticizes Israel is an anti-Semite." Today, Israelis like to say that they are permanently in charge of the unimaginable. Israel believes that its foothold in the Middle East is permanent. Since the Israelites were exiled from Jerusalem in 70 of the Common Era, Israel is their first permanent refuge in 2 millennia. So Israelis have asked, if God forbid they came for us again, who would protect us? And Israel is their answer. Though you and I are Americans, we are also Jews whose relationship with Israel is our hope. What would the world look like for Jews without Israel? Whether left or right, American Jews need to be mindful of their contributions to Israel's well-being. Tal Becker told us that his grandmother used to say to him, "Tal, put on a jacket. I'm cold." He said it's the epitome of the current situation between America and Israel. It's 2 different Jewish communities, and each one is telling the other what it should do to resolve the conflict. The conflict we share with like-minded Israelis is that what is permanent will be temporary, and what is temporary will be permanent. What is permanent and at risk of being temporary? The land that we've known for more than 70 years. But the conflict that has accompanied it is eroding confidence, especially among young Israelis, that the Israel they know will be forever. What is temporary and at risk of being permanent? The border defenses between Israel and all its surrounding neighbors, Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran, which is forcing its way through Iraq and Syria to create a land bridge to Lebanon, are a remarkable demonstration of Israel's and its allies' strength. But should they be a permanent way of life? This isn't peace. While we debate who is right and who is left, Zionism doesn't need to be debated by American or Israeli Jews. Be it cultural, political, religious, or secular, Zionism can be understood as the refusal to be a victim for anybody ever again. Israel's power isn't a sin. It's a necessary asset for defense and sovereignty. Used wisely, Israel's power can provide a home, a refuge, and a safe haven for Jews. But not only for Jews. They provide a place for Arabs, Druze, Christians, Armenians too. Today, the world is experiencing another catastrophic rise in anti-Semitism, No place has been untouched by it. Where a Jew bleeds, every Jew bleeds. But Israel must remain a permanent place where we can tell our Jewish stories. We need to coalesce around the well-being of our Judaism and Israel's future. We need to gain allies who understand what is at stake. Daniel Gordis, a leading expert on Israel matters, validates this in a recent newspaper column. He wrote, "American Jews are repulsed by the interminable conflict with the Palestinians and chant, 'End the occupation,' often without regard for the risks Israelis might have to assume to make that happen. Most Israelis would like the conflict to be over too, but if perpetuating the unique project that is the Jewish state means that the conflict will continue until the Palestinians demonstrate, not just declare, an end to their drive to destroy the Jewish state, Israelis will unhappily bear that too." He adds, "If the rift between American Jews and Israel is to be healed, salvation will come in an overdue conversation between the world's two largest Jewish communities to deepen our understanding of each other's differences, successes, and vulnerabilities in the hopes that we can learn from the best that each has to offer. In a world that is darkening for the Jews once again," Gordis concludes, "we need each other now more than ever." He's right. That's why I'm also pleased to tell you that Kehillah High, our own joint project between Beth Israel, Beth Yeshurun, and Bris Shalom, and Houston Jewish Federation, is restarting, resurrecting what we used to know as the Pilgrimage Program to Israel for 10th and 11th graders who are part of Kehillah High. It's one more way to bring Israel to our youth and our youth to Israel. And maybe you're already registered to travel to Israel with Cantor Trumpeter David Scott and me next June. These are significant ways to begin to tell our Israel stories again. And even if you're not traveling there soon, I'd still tell you to tell your family your Israel story and where you found your place in Israel. Don't tell them how the story ended. Tell them how to keep the story going. It's our hope and our promise. May the new year be good to the Jewish people and all the nations and all the places we call home. Amen.
We turn to page 267. God of remembrance, remember the covenant of our ancestors. We reaffirm it today. Remember we are a people of noble ideals. Help us attain them. Remember all your people, all the nations on the road to peace. Bless their efforts. Remember with mercy the binding of Isaac, the sorrow of Sarah, Abraham's words, "Here I am." Our memory fades, but you remember all that we have forgotten. Your presence is a throne where all things matter and nothing is lost. Baruch atah Adonai, Zocher Habrit. Blessed are you, Adonai. You remember the covenant. You remember us. Please rise. Tekiah, Shivarim Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shivarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah.
יקבל ברחמים, רחמים וברצון, סדר זיכרונותינו.
Of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out to Kia. Lovingly, favorably receive our prayers of Zichronot, page 282. You revealed your glory, a presence in a cloud, and a people became holy when you spoke with them. Amid thunder and lightning, you made yourself known. With blasting shofar, you appeared. Together, God revealed to us and to our fathers and mothers before us. God of revelation, play the song of our freedom on the great shofar. Let your banner fly over the gathering of our exiles. Bring back the dispersed. Let those who are scattered find their way home. Let joyful songs of Zion greet us in Jerusalem, your holy city, the place of our people's eternal happiness. Please rise.
Tekiah, Shivarim Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shivarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah Gedolah.
Let the wishes of our lips, our heart's desire, be pleasing before you, God Most High. You are knowing and attentive, watchful and aware when we call out to Kia. Lovingly, favorably receive our prayers of shofar oaths.
In our prayer book, we turn back to page 276. Yahalalu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levado. All praise God's name, for God's name alone is exalted. A precious teaching I have given you, my Torah. Do not forsake it. A tree of life to those who hold it fast. All who embrace it know happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Take us back, Adonai. Let us come back to you. Renew in our time the days of old. We turn to page 286 and join in the great prayer of adoration, Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liyotzeh bereshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishbechot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vigor alinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch
Please remain standing.
Page 291. Our thoughts turn to loved ones whom death has taken from us in recent days, and those who died at this season in years past. Our hearts open as well to the wider circles of loss in our community and wherever grief touches the human family. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be a blessing in this new year and always. In each of our loved ones' honor and memory, we continue now with Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, v'alman divrach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, pagala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal sh'mei kudasha b'richu. Le'ela le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, V'imru, Amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. We continue on page 299 with Ein Kelohenu. Following our service, our Tashlich ceremony will continue with Rabbi Steinman. Those wishing to participate can meet her in the Finger Chapel foyer.
We'll conclude our beautiful service and time together today with benediction on page 294. Please rise and respond. Strengthen us on this day.
Amen.
Bless us today.
Amen.
Lift up our lives on this day.
Amen.
Grant us goodness today.
Amen.
Inscribe us for a good life on this day.
Amen.
Hear our heartfelt words today.
Amen.
On this day, receive our prayers with love.
Amen.
Fortify our best intentions. May we go forth today to do your righteous work.
Amen.
Shana Tova Umituka.
Shana Tova.
Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us today. As the High Holy Day season continues, I'm so pleased that you joined us and shared the joy of our songs, our prayers, and the meaning of our messages. From all of us at Congregation Beth Israel, please accept our best wishes for a new year filled with happiness and joy, good health and prosperity, and most importantly, with peace. Shana Tova.